cable railing made easy. So this video is the second part in this little treehouse elevated deck build. Cable railing, super simple DIY approach. Gonna walk you through installation and just how simple it is to get a really clean look where you can barely even see it. Great sight lines, awesome. Here we go, DIY cable install. So many options when it comes to railings, especially with the DIY approach. Now, of course, I could have just continued on and done all wood. That would have been fine. But the sight lines you get with a cable wire are insane, right? And so usually code is about 4 inches spacing. This is 3 inches, but you can hardly see it. Now you can get this steel, you can get it black, all kinds of options. You could do prefab metal posts, metal railing. As you can see, some pretty impressive sight lines. You can see right through it, you can hardly see it. Now for this video, it is sponsored by Muzata. They've been around for 30 years, and I wanna show just a little bit about the options and considerations before we jump into the install. We do have timestamps you can skip on around, but I wanna show some other considerations before I show you what we went with and some of the DIY installation tips. So I want to show you this company Muzata. I gave them my dimensions and they worked up all of these plans with all kinds of different considerations, figuring out, posts, railing, how many wires we need, what connectors we would need, and they drew up all these plans. This was free. So they do this really cool feature where you can kind of explore the different options. And so there's a lot of really, really cool options. For us, we ended up with a DIY approach, but lots more on this company. You can use the link down below to learn more about it. There's some discounts. They did sponsor this build. I did get, these materials in exchange for making this video, full disclosure, but pretty awesome. Some amazing features, and it's just super intuitive. These were the dimensions we ended up using for our build and their plans. So pretty simple, pretty straightforward. So what comes in the DIY kit? So right here, you can see it comes with all the wire. We went with black coated, steel wire. Comes with all the different crimpers that you need, the right tools to just make it seamless. Really, really simple. And so we'll jump in and show you a little bit more how it works and a little bit more of the hardware, and then get going with the build. So I did start by using a scrap piece of plywood, and I marked out every 3 inches to kind of get a feel for it. I thought I was gonna, drill holes through that, use that as a jig, but really didn't need to do that. You are gonna have to find the center on your post, right? So 3.5-inch posts. So just go ahead and use a square, figure out where your center is. So I did start by using this to kind of get those marks off. Eventually, I didn't really use it that way as far as going through the holes. They do also come with, the stop block that we'll look at in a second to make sure you get that perfect 90 degrees. But I just went ahead and used this piece. It was cut to size, got everything lined up, then marked out my holes. So here's that drill guide I was talking about. Here's for those 90 degrees. Here's the spade bit that we're going to use for the end post. I didn't really use this too much for the post. You can see here I started with it. But if you are really, really good with it, good 90 degrees, you won't need it. But this is a good tool to help you kind of figure out, what your orientation of your drill is going to be. You could clamp this in place, but with all of the holes, I thought that would be a bit monotonous. And so, DIY approach, if you need to do this, for accuracy, you can, but didn't use it for the rest of it. So I went ahead and drilled the rest of the holes. This is the spade bit. The directions make everything really clear, but went ahead, it hogs out a fair amount. You do make sure you set the depth so you don't go too far. It's pretty straighteforward on these end posts. 90 degrees is important, but not as essential if you're a little off. But go ahead, you drill it, and then you're going to put the tensioner in. So the tensioner, it's like a little screw. But here you can see the directions do, suggest that, this is what it looks like. You can just hand tighten these in. Then there's a tool that we'll show later to get it fully tensioned in. It's a pretty tight fit. Now they do come with this little tap, and that will, make the holes in there. And so in the directions, it recommends doing that. However, I did that. I found that was a little loose. And so obviously you want to tension everything and make it super, super tight. I guess it would depend on the wood you're using, but the tap, I did one, and I'll show you here when I went through with the tap, but I don't necessarily think that you need to, after drilling the hole with a spade bit, use that tap to get thread the holes a little bit more. I think it's plenty fine because you want it really tight for the tensioner. So here's that little tap. We went through, added it to each But here is the actual wire. So you got the wire, and then there's these little washers. So you just stick one of the metal washers on, and then there's stickers you can put on the other end. And so after you get the the tensioner in, this is just gonna kind of close up that hole, make everything look nice. So you got that in there, and then you just kind of pop it on like so. And now it comes time for the ferrule here. And so this is really simple. And this comes from Muzata. This one works really, really well. And this is so that the tensioner doesn't pop off the wire. And so you just pop that little ferrule in there, and you just pump it just a couple times to hold it in place, and then go ahead and stick that wire through. And you just need, the directions. Again, we'll go through this, but just about 1/4 of an inch at the end. And then you just pop it a couple times. You don't need to go too far, or it's just going to be, it's going to pancake on you. But anyway, this tensioner is set, so now we can put it in the posts. So sometimes, once you release it, it is a little tricky to pop those off, but you'll figure it out. So this is what it looks like. This is the tool it comes with. There's actually a lot of these in each of the bags. And then you just go ahead and keep twisting. And you can see how the threads, this is one that I didn't pre-thread. It's nice and tight. And so you want these rails, these cables, to be really, really tight. And so there's lots of considerations in the plans. They'll talk about how long and when you cut it and crimp it. But it really is, I truly mean it. It's simple if you follow the directions. But this video will just give you an overview of the process so you can kind of see the workflow, feel a little bit more confident for this project. But you just start with one end, you tension it in, get it locked in, and then you go and you do the same thing on the other end. So this is an end post to an end post. There's no intermediary post. So this one's pretty straightforward. This is the first one I did. But here you can see those 3-inch spacing. It looks really clean. You have great sight lines. You can see everything really clearly. And then you'll just go ahead and pull off the stickers for that little washer. Here you can see I'm using that thing kind of, it wasn't a gauge. I was just to mark everything off. So marked off my holes. Here's those directions I was talking about. It is really simple, but it talks about the intermediary posts. So for in between posts, it's a little different. You're going to have these that are going to get stick in, and it's a different drill bit that you're going to use. And so this one, you're going to have a through drill bit. And again, all of these drill bits, the exact size, the exact everything comes with the kit that you get. And so anyway, make sure you do the right one for the right type of post. So here you can see the drill bit. That is definitely not 90 degrees. Some of them were, some of them weren't. So here, on those intermediary posts, maybe this is where you really do want to use that stop guide, but you can really tell, I thought I was so set. Those lower ones, not so much. The lower ones and higher ones. And so, yeah, it wasn't perfect. So I went back on the other side and I marked off the same holes just to see how far off I was. And yeah, I was pretty far off. So I went ahead and marked it, and then I just drilled back in the other way and kind of met the holes together. You honestly, if you didn't know, you wouldn't be able to see when you look at my project unless you're looking really close. So if you want it to look really clean, I do recommend for those intermediary posts, maybe do clamp that stop block to get that 90 degrees. So in this one, it's pretty much the same thing, except you're going to add those little sleeves, those metal sleeves that you saw earlier. Those are going to be for the intermediary posts. They're going to get hammered into place. But pretty much the same process, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So it is really straightforward, rinse and repeat, scooting back and forth. Simple, but you get the idea. And here I'm using just some pliers and a hammer, and those little sleeves, just slide it on over, right? So I have them there, and that's just gonna hammer in place. So here on the end, so I can get, good contact, and then just hammer it on into place, and that'll just go into the post, and it keeps everything nice and clean. You don't have washers for these. Instead, you have this different piece. Again, everything is pretty straightforward in the directions, but just another step for you to be aware of. Here's a closer look just to see what it looks like. It just makes it look a lot cleaner. And then on the other end, these are the ones that had, the tensioner, and it has the washer. So a pretty clean look. So you get the idea on this deck of this treehouse. It did quite a bit, and really it was pretty simple, pretty straightforward. This does not take a lot of time. Once you get the hang of it, once you've done one, you really can knock these out in no time. It does go pretty quickly. Get a system, moving things back and forth. But yeah, pretty simple. And here's a look at the deck. Kind of zoomed out a bit, get a feel for it. Again, great sight lines, really great. Would think this be a really great solution in a lot of different scenarios to maintain the great sight lines. All right, now on to the stairs. So the angle, it is a little bit trickier. So here I definitely did use that stop block. Here I'm actually clamping it in place because it has the correct, 32-degree angle of the stairs. And so here, this is how you would use it, earlier in those earlier applications, especially on those intermediary posts. So go ahead and line everything up, and then you drill it. And it's the same thing as before. It is exactly the same thing. The only difference for stairs or doing angled type processes is just to make sure that you have that angle going in correctly with the same, slope, the rise of the stairs. So here you go. You see it. It's a little bit tricky here as you go up and down. Things fall. You'll figure it out in no time, but pretty simple. And I sure do love it when my boys want to help out, especially my little 5-year-old here. He was a big help on this project, and it's fun to involve the boys. And so if you're new to my channel, I've got all kinds of outdoor builds and other projects where, my kids are very much involved, doing all kinds of things. And so he had a lot of fun with it, and obviously this deck, this treehouse that we'll keep adding. There's going to be a lot more to this. It's really for him. It's for his brothers as well, kind of making it a hybrid, since the older brothers used to have their own, play for in treehouse. But here you can see the stairs. You can see the look. I kind of was off on my placement just for my holes, but you get the idea. It still looks great, and if you didn't know any better, you wouldn't know any better. But great sight lines. And it's safe. It's super safe. So, when nieces and nephews are over, some littles, everything is safe back there. We're going to have some other stuff here on the front end, but here we go. All right. Well, we got railing. I'll probably keep adding on to this railing, spruce it up a bit. But you got a feel for where we're at here on the deck. There is a lot more coming for this project, more in this video series. This one was just really on the railing. But we got a zip line going off here, off the deck. We got climbing structures. We got all kinds of accessories. And who knows, in the future, we might go up higher. We might rope bridge, who knows? But that's where we're at here with a cable railing. Well, there you have it, the Muzata cable railing installation. It's really simple. And again, there's so many different variables in how. So stay tuned. We got the next part of this video coming. Lots of other really cool builds and projects. If this video added any value, consider subscribing to see videos like this. Got a lot of outdoor projects coming, more cool stuff in the future. If you are interested in purchasing or learning more about the Muzata cable railing, all the other possibilities and really cool things, make sure you check out the link down below to learn more about it. Some great savings, some really cool. It's just awesome. So I'm already thinking of other applications, especially when we expand, and who knows how many decks and tree houses we end up building. But pretty cool, pretty awesome. Well, thank you for watching. Until next time, take care.